I hope I am audible. And welcome to the 3-day Flutter Forward event. Here you will be learning hands-on session how to develop apps using Flutter and Dart. So myself, Akan Pratap Tiwari from JDSCBIT Bhopal. I'm a member of Android core team, and today we will be looking at some quick basics about Dart and Flutter so that you can push yourself into the realm of app development. So first, you will be getting your hands dirty with me on Dart, and then Asmit will further lead you into the Flutter. Sparsh will be coming tomorrow to further advance the concepts. Now, without further ado, let's get started and look at our agenda. First, we will go through the Dart pad, basics of Dart, and then introduction of Flutter with its installation. That we will looking at the widgets that are used in Flutter, and we will build our familiarity with the Flutter framework. So let's get started with the basics of Dart. So what is Dart? So like many other programming language, Dart is also a programming language designed especially for client development such as for web and mobile apps. And it can also be used to build server and desktop applications. Dart is a type-safe, general-purpose programming language designed for building fast apps on multiple platforms. It was developed by Google and it first appeared in 2011 and was intended to be an alternative to JavaScript by shipping its own virtual machine to run the apps in the browser. But the things did not go well during that time, and the web community did not really appreciate that language. However, it made a glorious comeback after being adopted into the by the UI framework Flutter. So Dart is unique for its ability to compile on the multiple targets like ARM and x64 machine code for mobile devices, JavaScript for web browser, self-contained executable for Windows, Mac, and the Linux. It also has a just-in-time compiler which compiles the source code into the machine code on the fly, which can boost the developer productivity with the features like hot reload. We will see this hot reload feature in a while. All the Dart code runs inside of an isolate, which you can think like of a chunk of a memory running in a single threaded event loop. This makes it possible to perform asynchronous background work on a single thread, but we can on multiple isolates to run code in parallel as well. The language itself is a type-safe language. Now, what does that mean? Type safety means that the variable's value always matches its static type, and that generally results in fewer runtime errors for the app in production. However, the type system is also flexible, allowing us to use dynamic types and runtime checks when required. It also provides null safety, which means that value cannot be null unless we define them to be. Now, syntactically, it is often described as the combining element of Java and JavaScript. However, I would say that if you are coming from web background, then you may have to put a pinch of effort extra, while app developers may find themselves at home while learning Dart. Every object in Dart is an instance of a class. The only thing that is not an object in a class is null. Now, uh, meanwhile, the functions are also first-class objects, which means they can be passed around for functional programming. Dart also has package manager called pub, providing thousands of open source packages to help us get things done even faster. Now, that is enough of an intro for the Dart part. Now, let us look at the Dart pad where we will be getting our hands dirty on the coding part. So, Dart is an open source tool that lets you play with the Dart language in any modern web browser. So I would like you to open the Dartpad with the given link dartpad.dev. When you type it on the search bar and search it, you will go to the Dartpad. Now let me just switch to the Dartpad. Yeah. So as you can see, there are three sections. So this is one section. Here we'll be writing our code. This is the console section. Here we will see our output. This is the documentation section, which shows the documentation about the Dart commands that we are using. So with the event proceeding, let us write a very famous program, that is, let us write the hello world program. So like any other language, we will be using the main. From here, the execution of our program starts. Now, as you can see, if you type some wrong expression, then the Dartpad provides you some suggestions and the errors that what might have gone wrong. So now let us proceed further, and we will use print to print the line to the console. Hello world. And then using this run key, we will run the program. Hello world. Now, if you do not want to write this return zero line, because most of the times it can be quite distracting. So you can just remove it, but then you have to put void here, so that the return type of this function is void, because it is not returning anything. I hope you know something about programming. If you are coming from some other language like C++ or Java, those two are quite famous. So let us proceed further and look at some. Let us look at some string concatenations and string interpolations in that. So let us suppose that this is a string. Let us say that we divide this. Now, to concatenate two strings, what we can do is we can simply just type plus, and it will just print the string as concatenated string. When we press run, yeah, you can see here the string is concatenated. Now, this can also be very useful when you have to print some expressions inside the string. So for that, we will use string interpolations like so. Let us say that we have to print the sum of 2 and 3. So what we will do, let us write this is sum of 2 and 3. So what we will do, that we will just put a dollar sign here, and then we will put brackets, and then we will write our expression 2 plus 3. Now, when we will run it, this will be the output. This is the sum of 2 and 3, that is 5. So what it is doing here, when it encounters the dollar symbol with the bracket, it evaluates the expression inside the bracket and then puts it inside the string. Now, it is particularly useful when you have variables, something like, let us define a variable, um, string, okay, that's a spelling mistake, string str1 is equals to, uh, let us say hello, and then what we can do here is we can just put str1. Now you can see that we have removed the braces, so we can remove the braces when we have only one identifier here, so that it is more readable. Now we can run it. Yeah, now you can see that the hello is printed at the position where we have put the dollar sign before it. So that is mostly all about the string interpolations. Now we will look at more advanced features of Dart. So one of the most important features of Dart is nullable and non-nullable variables. So let us look at the nullable and non-nullable variables. Dart exercises sound null safety, meaning that when we enable null safety, values cannot be null unless we say that they can be. In other words, types are non-nullable by default. So for example, let us consider uh, another example here. Let me just remove this. Yeah. Now let us write, take another string, string string uh, s1 is equals to hello. Okay. So now as you can see here, find s1 and we have initialized it with hello. But suppose that you do not want to initialize it with hello, and you may later want to initialize it. So you will remove this hello. Now then what? then s1 will become a null variable. So to define that s1 can take null values, what we will do here is we will put a question mark here. So now what we can do here, we can put s1 is equals to null. So that means now s1 is a nullable variable. It can store null values. Now if we print this as like this, yeah. So now let us run. Yeah. So the null is stored, it is casted to the string and we get output. But let us suppose we remove the question mark from here, then what will happen? Then as you can see that the pad is warning us against this invalid expression, that the value of type null cannot be assigned to the variable of type string. That is, this type string is non-nullable type. If we want to store null, then we have to put a question mark here. So that's all about it. By default, everything in Dart is null. So to we do not actually need to initialize a nullable variable by putting null here. We can just simply remove it, and s1 is by default null. We can just run and we can check it. Yeah, so that is null. Now, working with the null values might be quite hard, so that provides some special operators that go fluently with the null types. So these are called null aware operators. So Dart offers some handy operators for dealing with these null values. One of these is the null aware assignment operator, which looks like something like this. Wait a minute, just let me clear this. So Dart null aware assignment operator looks like this. So keep this in mind and let us write a program to see how this null assignment works. So let us take three variables. Integer a is equals to 5, let us say, and integer b, let us say that this one is null, and then integer c is equals to, now if I write like this, c, it will be, wait a minute, and let me just declare it here. Integer c is equals to 5, and yeah, okay. So we will use this in our next program. So we have defined a variable integer c, then we are using null assignment on 2. So what this null assignment does, that it assigns the value that is given on its right to its left side only if the value currently held in the left side is null. Now since the c is already storing the value 5, that is not null, so 2 will not be stored in c. So we can see this in output as using print, wait, yeah, print c, yeah, 5. So we assign the value 5, and since 5 is not null, so 2 will not be assigned to the c, and so c will print, yeah, 5, the value is stored. But suppose that c is null. Let us say that c is null. Okay, so now what will happen, this 2 value will be assigned to the c. Let us see this. Okay, 2. Now suppose that I do this 3, then after initializing c, then we are putting 3 into the variable c, so 2 will not be assigned here, and this particular expression is kind of useless here, and the Dartpad is also providing some optimizations about this variable, so we can simply remove this expression. So that was all about the null aware operator, null aware assignment operator. There is also called a default operator that is quite popularly used in the expressions. So let us look at the null assign. Yeah, just a minute. Let us clear this code and let us take integer a is equals to 5, integer b is equals to, let us say, 6, and integer c is equals to, let us say, 7, and then we want to assign c is equals to a and then b, and let us make this a as a nullable variable which is not initialized. Yeah, not initialized. Yeah. So, what is null aware default operator that we say? What does it? So it actually uh, checks whether the a is null or not. If the value we are assigning to c, that is a, which is onto the left of this default operator, if this is not null, then a will be assigned to the c. But suppose if a has the value null, then b will be assigned to the variable c. So in this expression, as you can see, I have not initialized a. So here the value of a will be null, but of b will be 6. So b should be assigned to the c. So now let us see what it, yeah, so we get 6. But suppose if we initialize a with some value like 8, let us say, so then what will happen here? The a, it will not be holding null, so a will be directly assigned to the c. So that was about the default operator. Uh, it returns the expression on its left unless the expression's value is null, in which case it evaluates and returns the expression on its right. So that was all about the null aware operators. Okay, so now let us take a deep dive into modern object oriented programming, that is classes and objects, which is one of the most important part that you must know before going into the Flutter framework. So uh, what are classes? So basically class is a template definition of the methods and variables in a particular kind of an object. But what does this really pesky definition mean? So that means what we are doing, that we are binding the data and the functions that act upon that data together in a single entity, that is called class. You can consider class just like a blueprint of a room. Maybe you can consider like a it like a blueprint of a room, which be used to construct several other rooms. So you just draw a blueprint, then you can construct several rooms with the help of that blueprint. So in Dartpad or in Dart programming, what we will do, we will just use the keyword class to make a class. Let us define this class as my class. Okay, the name of the class is my class. So we are going to define some variables. Let us put some string variable a and then string variable b and then string c. Let us initialize those strings. This is c, this is a, and this is b. Okay, so all the strings have been initialized. So these are the attributes of our class. These are the variables. Now let us define some functions that we will be using. So let us define function get a, get b, and get c. Yeah. So what these functions will do? These functions will return the corresponding values of a and b and c. So return a okay, semicolon, return B, and then return C. Yeah. Also, you might notice that we have not defined the return type of the function because it is already understood by the Dart, because we can use the flexibility of dynamic types. But it is generally preferred to use the types as static types because it will help you in the programming and identifying the types of variables so that you can never mistake the dynamic. You can never mistake the type of the variable that you have to assign. So since we are returning an string, we will write string here. Also, by defining types, you are also helping the Dart analyzer and the IDE that you are using. It will give you better suggestions for placing your code. So it makes the productivity higher. Okay, so the functions and the variables are defined. So let us initialize our classes, sorry, objects. So basically objects are the rooms that we are going to construct. So let us say that mm, var, that is variable, um, my object, let us sort it, and then we will initialize it by writing this and done. Yeah, so our object is ready. Now let us put that object into action. So we will call print, and then we will call the function from my object by using the dot operator. Dot operator is going to access the uh, attributes. So let us put get a will return the string, and we should get the value. This is a. So let us run this program. Yeah, this is it. So what happened? So basically our class is created, that attributes are defined, functions are defined, simple functions, and then we get to the main. Here from here the execution starts. In the my object, the object is stored of type my class. What we can also do here is we can copy this type, and since the type of my object is my class, and in the print function we are calling the get a function from the object. So that get a function is returning the value of a, which is string. Currently this is a, and that's what we are getting as output. So that was all, that was about the classes and objects. Now there is also a special feature about that from many web developers that are using JavaScript might be familiar with, is the arrow syntax for the functions. So what arrow syntax is, it basically is that we can replace this whole bracket and pesky, hard to readable expression with the simple arrow syntax like this, like this, and like this. So how to write arrow syntax? So arrow syntax is basically used for the one-liner expressions. So arrow syntax executes the expression after this, just after the function, and it returns the object that is currently written here. So basically the expression is a, so a will be returned. So let us just run this. Yeah, this is it. So that was a single liner expression. If you are going to write multiple lines in the functions, then it is not preferred to use, because you cannot use arrow syntax. To increase the readability of single liner expressions, we use arrow syntax. So that was all about the arrow syntax. Now, let us also define some setting variables. Let us define a string set a, that we are going to set the value of a here. So set a, so this will take input string. This function is going to take input and string a, and then it will oh, okay, sorry, it won't return anything because we are going to set the values of a and b and c, so we are not returning anything. So now what we are gonna do, now as you and so how the compiler or how the data analyzer is going to differentiate between these two. So for this we use a very special keyword called this dot a is equals to a. So what does this expression means? So expression means that what we are trying to do from within the object, we are trying to access the properties of the current object. And we generally do this when the shadowing is happening. So what is shadowing? If we remove this a, then a is equals to a. So this expression is quite ambiguous because a is also the input and a is also the current value of the object that we are holding. So what we put here is this dot a. So this dot a means currently a that is a member of this current class is equals to a. So now our compiler knows that this a is the input and this dot a is from here. This is the attribute. So now what we will do, we will just copy these and paste these to make all the other functions as well. Set a, set b, and set c, string a, b, string c, this dot a, this dot b, this dot c. Okay, sorry, wait a minute. Yeah, this will be b, and this will be c. Yeah. So now let us run the program. Uh, my object dot set a. Now we are going to set the string, provide the arguments. So let us put a1 here and then run this code. Yeah, a1. Now as you can see here, this syntax is also quite pesky and it is not very much readable and it contains only single line. So what we can do here, that we again use the arrow syntax. So arrow syntax and then again arrow syntax here and then arrow syntax here as well, and yeah, done. Okay, so yeah, semicolon missing. So yeah, keep the things in the mind that you have to put the semicolon because this thing can sometimes irritate you that what is the bug, but then you just see that it was the just a single semicolon that was missing. So yeah. So that was all about the this keyword. It provides a handy shortcut for assigning the values to the properties. So suppose if you have to assign the values and shadowing is happening. Shadowing means that if the parameter you are passing and the current attribute that is present in the class are ambiguous in the context, then you can use this keyword to access the properties and the attributes of the current object. So this technique for also works for the named parameters. We will see what the named parameters are. So now let us look at the conditional property access, which is one of the most important features when you are working on the large scale. So let us say that our my object is also null. Let us say I did not initialize it. And it has a random chance of having some value and having null. So for that we will be importing a library, okay, dart math. Okay. So from here we will be using random dot next. Okay. random dot next bool. Now, if this random dot next bool, it basically picks out a random boolean, and if this evaluates to true, then we are going to initialize our object my class. Else, it will contain null. So there is a random chance that our variable my object may be null or may not be null. So yeah, one more thing, I have used a ternary operator here. So what this ternary operator does, it checks whether the given condition this one is true. If this is true, then this expression is returned, and if that not is true, then second expression is returned. So let us go ahead and check this. My object dot get a. Yeah, okay, just a minute. I guess, yeah. So that was a spelling mistake here. Actually, that was not dart maths, it was dart math. So also a spelling mistake, keep in mind. Yeah, so as you can see here, an error is thrown. So why does this happen? So I do not want that. So what we will do here, we will put a question mark here. So that question mark is the safety that if my object is getting null value, then uh, our code will be guarded against that null value, and the null object won't be accessed by the dot operator. So now let us run our code, and yeah, here as you can see, this is it. Yeah, so this is this happened because now the at this particular chance, this random dot next bool, it returned true, so my class was initialized. Now let us run this. Let us, yeah, so null. So since null happened, but still we got the value, our execution did not stop, and we got the value null because it casted automatically. So that basically uh, prevents our program for getting into the whole round and round of errors, so that are caused by null. So be careful. So this particular operator is quite useful, and this scenario is called conditional property access. But now let us say that I am particularly sure that my object won't be null. Let us say that my object is initialized here with my class. Yeah. So then what happens, that I am pretty sure that it won't happen, that my object can have a null value because I am already initializing after that. So what we will do here, we can replace this question mark with an assertion exclamation mark. So this says to the dart like, okay, that my object won't be null because the developer is handling it from their side. So we are assuring that it won't be null, but it is our responsibility to ensure that my object cannot be null. And since here dart analyzer is quite smart, so it is giving the recommendations that it has no effect. This exclamation mark, this null check operator has no effect because in the previous line we are already initializing, so there is no need of this assertion operator. We are already asserting indirectly here that my object won't be null. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That was all about conditional property access. So now let us move ahead towards the optional parameters and the required parameters, name parameters and such things. So for that, let us define a simple function. Uh, Let us say that we are creating a function func, and we are passing some strings. Let us first define the function func, and it won't do anything. It was just print, it won't return anything. Func void, and it will print, and it will take two inputs, string a comma string b, and then it will concatenate those two string with a space in between them. Okay, so that's it. Yeah. Now let us put the input the values, and let us put the like to Flutter, and let us just put awesome. Yeah. Now let us run the program. Yeah, so this is the basic syntax of how you define a function. Basically, here is the return type, and here are the arguments with their types, and then here are all the body that the statements that you are going to execute. But suppose that you are also passing a third parameter. Let us say a string C, and you are concatenating that too. Let us write this, and we are passing here. Let us say by Google. Yeah. Now let us run again. Yeah, Flutter awesome by Google. Now suppose that you do not want to pass this third argument. So what will you do? So it is an optional parameter. So to make it optional, we just put square brackets around that. So since it is optional, so it can take value null. So we have to make it nullable. We are going to put a question mark here. And now since this variable is nullable, we have to handle the null values here. Now, the operators that we have studied are going to help us quite much here. Since C is going to be null, what we are going to do, we are going to simply use this operator, the default operator, if you might remember. Now let us put brackets here and then see the explanation. Yeah. So what this line means? This line means that this is an optional parameter that C may or may not be present. And since by default all the values will be null, so C will also be null. And since C will be null, so this default operator will check that the value on its left is null. So the value on its right will be, which is just empty string. So that will be returned and concatenated. So let us suppose that I am not passing this particular third string, and then run the program, and here it works. We have made the third argument as optional. Now uh, with that, you can make these positional parameters optional by wrapping them in brackets. Optional positional parameters are always last in a function's parameter list. That is, we have to always put this square bracket thingies at the last. Their default value also, their default value is null, but we can initialize their default value as well. For example, let us suppose that I am putting this here. Yeah. So now it won't be null. So we can just simply remove this null, checking here. Yeah. So these, okay, wait. Okay, yeah, it won't be null. We have to assert that. Okay. Yeah. So as you can see here, I am passing a optional parameter, but I am assuring that it is having a default value, so that if I am not passing the third parameter here, it still has the value by Google. And since I am assuring that it has the value by Google, so I can assert that C won't be null here. If I remove the assertion operator here, then the dart will show the error that, okay, this can be null. So I will say, no, it won't be null because I am assuring that. So let's just put this null check here and run it. Yeah, Flutter awesome by Google. So that was about the optional parameters. Now let us look at the named parameters. So let me just remove this, and here, so here also, yeah. So what are named parameters? So when you enclose the parameters in the curly brackets, then those become named parameters. To pass the named parameters, you have to write the parameter name here. Basically, that's what named parameters are. For example, we are passing string A here, so we have to put A and then B here, A colon B colon. Now, as you can see here, the Dart is showing some error. So that error is particularly because the named arguments, they should not be null. So uh, we have to put a required keyword here. So let me just put required also here. What this required means? Required means that both of these arguments are required and cannot be null, and we have to pass some argument to these. That's what required keyword does. So basically, when we want to write this function, let me just remove func, and you get this particular snippet here that will be automatically shown by your IDE. That's why it helps, or it comes with the so just put enter here. And now when you look at the recommendations here, you can see the parameters name. Okay, like a. Okay, so we have to put our first string here, flutter, and then you can again check the recommendation, and yeah, okay, b, that means second string. Okay, awesome. Now how do you check these recommendations? So for that the shortcut is control plus space. For that you can check the available recommendations. So these are the named parameters. Now by default the named parameters are also optional uh, unless they are explicitly marked as required. As you might expect, the default value of nullable named parameters are null, but you can provide some custom default values. As we did in the previous example, you can do the same as in here also. Now let us further advance into the concept of constructors. So constructor are a special type of functions in the classes. Okay, let me just remove this and then this, and then let us initialize my object with my class, and then okay, put a var here. Okay, so constructors are special type of functions that are called during the initialization of the object. That is when the object is created, this particular thing is called uh, my class, and then this and this. Now any expression that you write here will be executed at the time of the creation of the object. So let me just print random string here. Random. Okay, ransom. That's a random string. Yeah. Now let us run this program. Yeah. So random string is printed. So as we initialize this my object variable is created, this constructor is called. So as the name says, constructor, that is call during the construction. Okay, so constructor is called, statements are executed. So what is the need of the constructor? So basically uh, during the initialization, that is when you create the object, you might want to do some specific tasks, initialize some variables, or maybe perform some other or some another task. So to do that we use constructors. So now let us proceed towards some more advanced topic, that is const constructors, that is constant constructors. So first we will look at what is constant constructors. Let me just put const here. So uh, if your class produces objects that will never change. Okay, let me just create another class here, or it will just get mixed up. So let us make class const class here, and then make a constant constructor. The name of the constructor has to be same as the name of the class. That you must keep in mind. Also, the constant constructors don't have a body. And if you are creating constant constructors, then the class to which that constructor corresponds must have final variables. All the variables must be final. So string a is equals to a1, and final string b is equals to b1. Yeah, so that is our constant constructor. So if our class produces objects that you are pretty sure about them that they will never change. So you can make these objects compile time constants. So to do this, we basically add a constant keyword and make all the attributes as final in our class. So constant constructor will basically improve the performance of the program. So whenever you can make the constructors as constant, but you can also see here about final here. So what does this final means? Final also does the same thing, that if you are putting final before some variable, so basically you means that after initialization you cannot change it. So what does that mean? Let me put another thing here. Const, let us say I am doing this const string equals to c1. So what is difference between this const string c and final string b? So both basically say the same thing, that once you initialize the variable, you won't be able to change them. Okay, that much is clear. So then what is the difference? Then the difference is that uh, const is a compile time constant. That is, the value is available during the compile time and it won't change after that when the program is executed. But final says that okay, it won't be available at the compile time, but during the runtime, the value will be available. So you can initialize the final variable uh, during the runtime and it will be constant once it is initialized. But when you are going to use the const, then it has to be compile time constant. So basically final means runtime constant and const means compile time constant. So that was about the const and the final keywords and the constant constructors. Now let us move towards the inheritance, one of the very important concepts. Okay, so what is inheritance? So basically, inheritance allows programmers to create classes that are built upon existing base classes. They are generally called parent classes. So basically, you have inherited your genes from your parents. So similarly, classes can inherit the properties of another classes. So to specify a new implementation while maintaining the same behaviors, to reuse the code and to independently extend the original software, we generally use this inheritance concept. So you can think of it, yeah, you can remember that room example, blueprint and the room. So let us suppose that you want a particular type of room where you want fan switches as well. So say that our original room has only light switches, but you also want fan switches. So what you do, you take the original blueprint of the room type 1 and then you create the room of type 2 that you inherit from type 1, and you add one more attribute to it, and that particular attribute is fan switch. And then by using that particular type 2 room blueprint, you will be able to construct all the rooms that have light switches as well as fan switches. So how do we implement this in Dart? Well, for that we have extends keyword. So let us put my okay, let us inherit class my inherited extends my class. Yeah, okay. And let us define another string. Let us say b is equals to so okay, wait, that is an integer. Yeah, b is equals to hello. So we have defined, yeah, so we have defined the inherited class and we have initialized it with the value hello. Now let us create an object. My inherit is equals to um, my inherited, and yeah, then we are going to print my inherit dot b. Yeah, so it should print hello. Okay, let's just run. Okay, it is running. Wait a few moment. Yeah. So that's it. Random string. Okay, yeah, random string is called because of this constructor, and that random string, as you can see. So why is it being called two times? So first is here, my object, we are initializing my class, but then we are not initializing this. We are not creating another object of type my class once again. So why this random string is popping up once again? So that is because when we are creating an object of type my inherited, which inherits its properties from the my class. So what that does, that it creates an other object of my class type for this inherited class. And since the constructor is called during the creation of the object, this particular random string pops once again. So that was about that, the constructor. Okay, let me just remove it so that we only see this particular hello string. Yeah. So what is the benefit of inheritance then? So as you can see, then in this particular object I am able to access one extra attribute. Okay, that's good. But what we can do here, if you go and look into the suggestions by pressing control space, you will be able to see that we are also able to access the attributes of my class, that is the parent class. So if I put my inheritor C, this is C will be printed. This is C. So okay, that was pretty good. That was about the inheritance, on the topic of inheritance. Now suppose that you want to make some changes in the parent class from inside this particular class, that is the child class. Let me rename this. This is my inherited class. Suppose that I want to print. Okay, let us make a function void, uh, and it will, okay, yeah, print parent, and then it will print. Once again, we are going to use arrow syntax because it is a single line expression. Okay. So now let us suppose that from inside this particular class, I want to print the value of b. How am I going to do it? So there is a particular word called super that is used to access the elements of the super class, that is parent class, or from the class which we are inheriting the properties, super dot a. So you learned about the two keywords, this and super. This keyword is used to access the properties of the current object, and super is used to access the properties of the parent. So now let us call this here my inherit dot, yeah, you can take the help of suggestions here, print parent, and run this. This is a. So from within the child class, we are going to we are accessing the parent attributes with the help of super keyword. So super keyword is used to refer the immediate parent class object. You must keep in the mind that if you are doing multi-level inheritance, we are not going that deep into the inheritance, but some of you might know. So that will always access the immediate parent class object. It does not call the method, whereas when we create a subclass instance, the parent class is created implicitly, so the super keyword calls that instance. So basically this super keyword is calling that particular parent class object that we have created. These objects are also called instances. Okay, so that was all about the important things that you have to know about the Dart programming. That was all about that. Now let us have a introduction to the Flutter framework. So let me just shift to this tab, and yes, okay. So let us have an introduction to Flutter. So Flutter is a UI framework for building apps on iOS, Android, and web and desktop. At its core, Flutter combines a high-performance graphics engine namely Skia, written in C++ language. Now again, Flutter is improving its performance by implementing a new engine called Impeller. So Flutter is going to be much more powerful, and however, Dart is quite skinny. Although Dart has to be look kind of muscular, but yeah. So Flutter is going to implement the new engine called Impeller. So why are we using Dart? We have already discussed the benefits, null safety. We can compile to multiple platforms, better support, and it's all just about the optimizations. So uh, we also have the features like stateful, stateless, and hot reload features. These features we will be discussing in the next upcoming few minutes. So just be patient, and uh, that compiles to native machine code, as you know, which means our graphics renders beautiful on any platform, and the speed is super fast. So in Flutter, let us look at the execution. Let us look at the installation instructions about the Flutter. So you can see the link on the screen. So please go to that link, or you can just type flutter.dev, and then you will be redirected to the site. Yeah, so just type flutter.dev in the search, and you will be redirected to this site. Go to the doc, and you will see that here, okay, install Flutter. Click here, and you will be provided with the platform that you want to install the Flutter on. I am currently on Windows. I will click on the Windows. Then you will get a pretty detailed instruction set about how you are going to install the Flutter on your machine, and it will go make you go through the particular instructions. Make sure that you follow each step, don't miss any step, don't think anything is unnecessary. Everything is mentioned here is to make sure that everything is perfectly installed, and after installing you have to run the Flutter doctor. It will make sure that the setup on your machine is perfectly fine and working. And you have also have to install the Android Studio. The setup is listed here. You can go through it, and all the instructions are pretty detailed and self-explanatory. So I will be leaving here. uh, okay, so now the session will be continued by Asmit. Okay, Asmit, now I would like to continue. I would like to ask you to continue to the session. Unmute yourself. Your mic is muted.
Yes. Am I audible now? Uh,
Yes, you are audible, but your screen is not visible.
yeah, I'll share it. 1 second.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so Asmit is continuing.
Okay, so Now we'll look at stateless and stateful widgets. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Ashmit Ranjan Sinha, and I'm also the core member of Android team in GDSC. So now I Akhand as let you all know about basics of Dart and Dart programming language. So I will move towards a bit development side, and make you first familiar with all the development tools that you need to be familiar with before jumping to Flutter or development in general. So first, we'll talk about emulators. So what are emulators? So emulators are where you can say a virtual device where you can test your app, and it comes in wide range of device configurations, including different screen sizes, resolutions, and orientations, as well as hardware features such as GPS, accelerometer, cameras. Identify issues and bugs in your apps and optimize your app in variety of devices, because as you know every phone has different screen sizes, and you have to make apps to makes app keeping in mind that every phone has some different features, different screen sizes, and you have to optimize your app in that way. So I'll run a emulator and let you all know let you all see how it looks like. Okay, so this is an iPhone 14 Pro emulator. Okay. So as you can all can see, this is identical to an iOS phone. Okay. So it has all the features you can install apps here, debug your apps. You can also install various other apps like MetaMask or PayPal to integrate with your app and see if it's working or not. Now I'll create a simple Flutter project. So Akhand told you all about Flutter commands, one specific Flutter command, that is Flutter Doctor. So what Flutter Doctor does, it checks that if Flutter is installed in your system correctly or not. So similar to that, there are many Flutter commands. Like if you have Flutter on your system, you can check that by simply typing Flutter on terminal or command prompt. So if I type Flutter, you can see various commands here, config, doctor, downgrade, upgrade to update your Flutter, clean to clean the project on your project folder, and create. So what we want, we will be using to create a project is Flutter create. So let me clear this first, and let me make it big so you can see. First, we'll use CD to go into our folder, and here we will create a Flutter project. So I'm naming my project Flutter Forward, and I'll create. So this command will create a big initial project Flutter project with a default app. Now we'll cd go into this project. And if you have VS Code installed in your system and you have updated your path for VS Code, there is a simple command that you can type in your project by going into your project, that is code space dot, and it will open VS Code directly from the terminal. Okay. This is what a basic Flutter project looks like. It has several folders for Android, iOS, and the main folder that we will be working in is the library folder, that is lib. And the code started like the app, when the app starts, it starts from the main.dart file. Okay. So let me start the project on my iOS simulator. Okay, so this is the debug console where you can debug all your app. You can print if see the also see replay calls and all the issues and bugs if any issues bugs come here, it will show in the debug console. And this is the terminal that is opened in your Flutter project. From here, you can if you are using Git, you can push all or add commit changes from here only. Let me clean these comments. Okay, so when you create any Flutter app, uh, the Flutter will create an default application for you. So this is a basic application. When you hit the plus button, the counter will increase, as you can see. So now I would like to talk about one of the cool features for Flutter. So that is hot reload. So if we do any changes in the app, make the primary swatch color, that is the default color for the app, that is set to blue. I will change it to red, and if we hit save, the changes will reflect immediately. That is done by hot reload. So hot reload is what it basically uh, do the changes quickly. Hot reload is a feature that is allows you to quickly see the changes you made to your code in real time. With hot reload, you can make changes to your code and see the effects immediately without needing to restart your app. So I changed the color and I didn't needed to restart my app. Okay, you can see. So this can allow you to save your time and debug very fast. That is one of the cool features of Flutter. Okay, so I'll make it to blue. And what I want to do here is the app already has a increment button. So I want to create a decrement button that will decrement the counter. So for that, I need to have a button. So you can see that the app already has a floating action button that is increment. So I want to create a decrement button. So what I will do, I'll copy this code and wrap it with row. Basically, wrap it with row. Second. So you can ignore these widgets like rows and all because we will talk about this in the further coming sessions like rows, scaffolds, and container. So you can ignore these for now. So I put two buttons in my row. So I have, you can see as on the screen, we have two buttons. So I'll make one of the buttons as decrement. I'll change the icon. You can see the one of the button has my minus icon. So the buttons are not aligned in the center, so let me align it. Okay, so the center. If we click on the decrement button, it will again increment it because we don't have a function like increment counter. We don't have a similar function, so we'll have to create one. I'll just copy this code, paste it. I've set my function name as decrement counter, and I'll change this counter plus plus to counter minus minus, and I call this function when on press. There is a attribute in the floating action button that is on pressed. So this allows you to press the button and call a function. Like I will call the function decrement. So now if you click on the counter, it will decrement it. You can also go to minus negative. And if you click pause plus, it will increment it. Okay. So this is the changes we did, and with hot reload, you can see I didn't need to start the app. The hot reload came in so much handy. Like we did so many changes and we didn't need to start the app. Okay. So now we can like talk about stateless and stateful widget. So before like jumping to code, or like I want to show make sure like you know what is stateless and what are stateful widgets. So stateless widgets are basically immutable widgets. In these kinds of widgets, the state of the app does not changes. Like if user puts in uh, text as ABC, the text will be ABC as long as like the user does not changes manually in the code. Okay. So these are like kind of stateless widgets. So let me create a stateless widget. First, I'll clear the code. I'm making a file, home, call it homepage for our app. And you can create a stateless widget with just, I'm creating it with a code snippet STLE. If you have Flutter extension installed in the system, that is in a VS Code, you can use this snippet. This is the extension. So I'll use this snippet to create my stateless widget. I have to import it. Yeah. Now if I restart, because I did some major changes, so I'll have to restart my app. So you can see after restarting it, it looks like this. So for you can ignore these scaffolds for now. Talk about this later. But for showing how a stateless widgets work, I will create a basic text. I've created a basic text button. So on clicking this text button, let's print Flutter Forward session 1 or day 1. Let's open my debug console. And if I click this button, you can see it's for day 1. For making it clear, I will use log. So log uh, isn't like tool. You can use it to print logs in your debug console. It will show you in yellow color. Okay, you can see. So as you can see, like this will not change. This will not change itself. So if you want to change the text of this text of this text button, you will have to do it manually from here. Like I'll say ABC, then it changes. Like you can't change it. The app cannot change it itself. For like that type of changes, we have to use stateful widgets. So like what are stateful widgets? So stateful widgets is a type of widget that are used to display information that can change over time. Unlike stateless widgets, stateful widget have internal state, which means that their appearance and behavior can be updated dynamically based on like changes to their internal states. So if you want to call an API, or if you are like working with APIs and stuff, and want to make more advanced app, like we can use stateful widget. So for making stateful widget, we can also use like snippets. Basically, if you type STFL, will create a stateful widget. Let's give the same name, if scaffold. Okay, so now this time we'll create a elevated button. Okay, so now we have a stateful widget. Again, we can print forward table. Okay. So this is also same. Basically, this is a stateful widget for, but here we can change the state of the app. So how we can do that? Before that, let me show you one of the cool features, like one of the features of stateful widget. So this is init state. So this is a function that is called when this widget is this widget is created. Like so, this function will be called. So if we put something here, print uh, in random and when our debug console, clear it. Like if I the app, you can say this widget is called. Like we didn't press anything, we just reloaded the app, and from here the my open home page is called, and then this function is called, init state is called, and like if you can here add API calls that will like reflect on your app or something. Uh, Anything like that, any function that is called here will be like any function that is like mentioned. It is created. Okay, so this is one of the things of stateful widget. Now, now what I want to do, like when I click on this button, I want to change the color of this button to say red. Okay, so for that, I'll first create a boolean on press and I will set it to false. Okay, and then I will create an function on button pressed. And in stateful widget, there is something called set state. So what this set state does, it changes the state of, it can change the state of anything like you put under it. So if I say on press will be equal to will be equal to its opposite, that is false, when this function is called. So when I call this function, the false will become true. Okay, so I can show you this. I'm printing the on press also, and I'm calling this on again in the init state. 1 second. Yeah. So I will call this on button press in the init state and see if the true becomes false or not. So you can see like we assigned it to false, and when I'm calling this on button press, the boolean changes. Okay. So now I want to change the color of this button when we click on this button. So for that, we'll first give it a styling. In button styling, we can give this background color, real estate property color. So on press is true, then we change it to, and basically I'm using an inline if else here. So what I'm saying here is if on press is true, then the color will be red, and if it is false, then it will be like blue. So and on press, I'll call this function on button press. Okay, so it was like we were calling it in a init state, so it was true. So now if I click on this button, it will change its color. So you can see like stateful widget we have created a stateful widget, and the state of the app is changing on itself. Like we don't need to add any code further to like change the color manually. And you can see like we are also printing the boolean. So this is like stateful widget. You can learn more about stateless and stateful widget using the Flutter documentation. Like Flutter has one of the best documentations. Okay, so that's all for today's session. On the next day, we'll look more into widgets, common widgets like container, scaffold, buttons, text buttons, etc. Now we are like open to questions.
Okay, so now you can ask questions. So basically, Flutter is already surrounded like it is built upon widgets. Widget draw something, you put something, you get something on a screen. That's all about it. Okay, so Q&A has been enabled. You can go ahead and ask the questions. Okay, take your time and ask those questions. You should be able to see the questions in the. Okay, yeah,
You can see the question, yeah, that is just beside the general button,
yeah.
and you can ask question.
Yeah, so we have used the Dart language in the first part of this session. We actually discussed how to code in Dart. So that was about it. Flutter is written in Dart, so we use Dart language. Dart. Okay.
Flutter is Dart and Flutter are both built upon C++. That's one of the reasons that it is also very fast. And Dart is basically used to like make apps in Flutter.
Okay, so please fill the attendance form. It will be better so that you can get the attendance. Also, those who have missed the session, don't worry because the recording will be available on the GDSC VIT Bhopal channel. You can just go there and see the missing parts. Okay, so the limitations with the Flutter in the modern development scenario. So Flutter is very performant actually. Um yeah, if I have to say, then the uh, at most limitation that I got was the uh, native code. If I have to write the native code, then it might not be quite as much as convenient to write native code in Flutter. That is, sometimes you might want to change the transparency of window. For example, you have to make an app for the desktop. You can do with the Flutter, but let us say that you want to change the transparency, then there is not any inbuilt functionality. You have to find some this and those ways to get the work done. However, there are libraries that get the work nicely and easily done. The major limitation, or you can say the drawback that I saw, was the nesting. When you code in Flutter, nesting gets worse and worse. However, with quite precise abstractions, with the help of object oriented programming, if you have better knowledge of that, you can abstract the code and make the code more readable, so that eliminate that limitation. So besides that, Flutter is pretty good actually. Uh, I mean, if you take any other cross platform tool set like React Native, then it is not as performant as this Flutter. So yeah. Okay, so how long did it take to develop your first functional app with Flutter? Okay, as just Asmit just shown has just shown you that you have to just input a command and basically a functional app is ready for you. So it took me literally 5 seconds to do that. I just have to put a command and the app was ready. But if I have to say that when I built something good and fruitful, it took me about like 2 or 3 days maybe for the first time to make some functional thing. So that was quite an experience. Like it was
And for
very like
like
I honestly thought it was very tough, but it was very easy. Like
yeah, and
it won't take you long.
for like real time scenario, last year I built an app for project exhibition, that was a music player app, which also had a chat feature. So that was a pretty big big functionality app. So that took me like I didn't know Flutter before like start working on the app. So from a real time scenario, I can say in 1 month you can learn like many things in Flutter. And if you like follow the documentations and like are committed to like learn Flutter, you can do it in like 1 week, 1 month. There is no time like that. Like this is this depends basically on the individual.
Yeah. So how did you learn the? Okay. So uh, to learn anything, the best way is to practice. Take a small project and then practice on it. And whenever you get stuck, just go into the one place, and that is documentation. Flutter has one of the best documentation, and this applies to any other technology that are using. So
Okay,
just
so
attack the documentation. That's it. And yeah, you can also watch the tutorials as well. Flutter has very good tutorials, video tutorials as well. But
yeah.
I would recommend first go to the documentation, practice documentation, practice, and that will just get you out. Yeah, that will just fine.
So Flutter advantage over React. So when you compare Flutter with React, or you compare React with native apps, native development tools like Kotlin. So and you put these three in a like bar chart. I can say like Flutter will come close to the uh, native one as compared to React. React is like not that fast enough as compared to Flutter when we are talking about with in comparison with React like native apps like Kotlin uh, or in iOS also. Like React is not that like close to native, and Flutter has material UI, and well, React also has like Flutter material UI is made by Google, and Flutter is made by also Google. So you can
There is one more thing about Flutter actually. In React, you don't have these things called like widget. You have to put quite a bit of effort from the start. While Flutter gives you widgets out of the box, like you have buttons, you have containers, you have basically everything to build a basic app.
yeah.
Are you going to build any app? Yeah, yeah. We are going to further build a perfect app with a login and authentication system. And for the backend, we will be using Firebase. And that session, we are going to start from the day two. In that, we will be using Firebase for authentication.
So you can check the timeline to like understand like what are the topics we are going to cover.
Payment gateways, yeah, absolutely. You can integrate payment gateways in Flutter apps as well. There is no limitation to the imagination. Actually, I have seen that mostly web developers actually prefer to go towards React Native because it looks more like web development thing.
Yeah,
However, most of the users that come from the platforms like C, C++, Java, or things like that languages, they generally tend to prefer Flutter because of the Dart language, because they feel much more familiar with the Flutter.
yeah, and Flutter is pretty fast because of Dart, and Dart is fast because of C++.
Yeah. It also Flutter also has its own rendering engine, and that
Yeah,
is written in C++. So
yeah,
one more advice: if you want to build something pretty fast and powerful, yeah, C, C++ is must, and after that Java.
yeah,
And by learning the Dart, not only you can build Flutter apps, but also you can do server-sided programmings. And for example, just like that you use Python for the backend applications, you can also use Dart for the backend applications as well. We will be ending the QA session pretty soon. Just 2 more minutes. If you have any questions, please uh, put them in the chat. For the further sessions, I would recommend that you install all the toolsets and Android emulators. We will be continuing this session 2 more days, where we will be building a basic app and a login and authentication system using Firebase. So I expect you to install the Flutter toolset and the emulator. If you do not have emulator, you can also connect your real mobile and check your app on that as well. You can just run a simple command
yeah.
from Flutter. But for that, you have to check that you have appropriate toolsets installed. For example, for the Android, you need Android Debug Bridge. From where you learn Flutter? Yeah, from the documentation. I started from the documentation basically. I when I first saw the app, like, yeah, okay. Then I made changes to that app. Do this, this happens. Do this, that happens. Okay, then what if I want to do that, like if I want to add a button, or if I want to add some maybe change the color of some button, or maybe I want to display text. And I just kept searching and then looking at the documentation, searching documentation, practice, and this, yeah, Flutter got into my hand. You will be able to see the recording of this session from the GDSC VIT Bhopal YouTube channel. If you missed anything, you can just go ahead and see that. Everything will be there. Okay, when did you started? Is this question for me or Asmit? I guess Asmit, you should answer this.
I started Flutter in last week of August 2022. So that's when I started working on my project exhibitions project, and that's when I started looking into Flutter and app development in general.
And I started around the November of the previous year. Yeah, not too much long. Are there any prerequisites for Flutter? Okay, so you must know at least basic programming. Yeah,
Basic
like
programming and basics of Dart.
Yeah, basics of Dart and object oriented programming. Oops. Yeah, that will be enough. Like you might have already studied these basics in the first year, so that will be enough.
Did you
One should
practice every
know.
day?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oops.
so
And any language practice. Did you practice every day? No, definitely not. There are exams. There are like pressure to maintain the ranking CGPA and stuff like that, and then we do like to miss a day or two for the fun. So no,
for
not like every day, but yeah, once in a while you should polish your skills, make some app, and
I can
do some
say like
commitments like
I do Flutter a week or 7 days a week. So I can say like I pretty much do Flutter every day. Wow.
no, I can't do Flutter every day. I just like maybe sometimes 3 days a week, 2 days a week. It really depends what I am doing. For example, I want to make some project. I have some good idea. Yeah, let's get started and let's get it done. But maintain a balance between the life and the coding practice that you are doing. Yeah, that's all. No one can do that every day. But yeah, you should be polishing your skills. What is your CGPA? Okay. That's not that much important.
I don't think that that is mandatory. I but
Yeah.
is it is
Okay,
average.
I will tell first. You tell me what is your CGPA.
Yeah.
I will tell mine once you will tell yours. Then I will tell. Okay, 8.71. That's pretty good actually. Okay. Um, okay, so whose CGPA do you want to know?
Mine is around that only, like 8.5. So
Yeah, okay. Okay, so only 1 minute is left. So any more questions? Then please come up ahead. What is your yeah? Okay. Okay, so I guess there are no more questions. So let us wrap up this session. We will meet next day. We will be building. I would like to meet in. Okay. Oh yeah,
okay.
definitely. We also want to meet you. Okay, we will be coming soon. So uh, let us
Now I
wrap up
will
this session.
close
Okay.
the Q&A.
Yeah. Close the Q&A.
Yeah, I've closed it.
Uh, so for the next session, install the toolset, go through the session, do some practice, go through the object-oriented programming, and then we will be meeting next day, same time. And in next day, Spurs and Asmith will take the session. Okay. So that's all for today. Thank you very much. Make sure to fill the attendance form. Bye. Good
Bye.
night.
Bye, guys.